once again, back once again, back once again, back once again, back once again with a beat. Let the bass kick.
Here's a familiar one from Lewis Carroll. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. I'm Scott with the Wisdom in All Things podcast, where we are looking at applying wisdom in 3 areas: mind, body, and soul. On this episode, being still, doing nothing misses something. Because by doing nothing, you may miss something. A. Milne says, don't underestimate the value of doing nothing. There's something there, so don't miss it. His quote conjures up the image of Winnie the Pooh sitting under a tree lazily watching butterflies and bees. As the author of the Winnie the Pooh series, you can just imagine Milne having Pooh use those very words in response to Owl looking down from his perch to find Pooh doing nothing at all. Get up? Get moving? Oh, bother. But unlike Pooh Bear, we're not talking about enabling laziness. Doing nothing is not quite the same as being still. What should make it easier to see is comparing the 2 words: doing, being. Additionally, to better understand where we're headed, you don't just want to refrain from doing something. Being still is a discipline or rigor of the mind to keep itself and the body from striving, if only for a short time. Could you do that? Could you be still for a full 15 minutes? I'm not talking about not moving or making a sound. I mean nothing. Not planning, not solving, not ruminating, no wishing, no itemizing, no forecasting. It would be a stretch to say that I'm capable of being still. In fact, my days often consist of my being in at least 2 meetings at the same time. The one I'm actually in and the other 1 or 2 that I'm having in my head. It is more of a condition I'm suffering from than something I would recommend, which is why I find that question about being still for any length of time so intriguing. Michael Hyatt does too. He wrote an article about stillness because of his run-in with the idea of doing nothing for 15 minutes every day. At the time of that article, he had done nothing for 15 minutes a day for 22 days in a row. Typically, when we hear the words "be still," it brings to mind the familiar verse that continues, "and know that I am God." It's in Psalm 46:10. In this case, I want to focus on just those 2 first words. I've already pointed out that it is more than just trying not to do anything. There's an effort toward being. Doing nothing leads to nothing. Being still leads to knowing. This is the crucial difference between doing nothing and being still. Doing nothing misses the something. Consider this: be still, or you won't know that He is God. This would be a devastating miss. Without being still, there would be significant misses all throughout our lives. So this is how we can move forward, by being still. For our teen boys, doing nothing has become an art form. I realize I'm overstating it, as any parent would, but there is a principle that I want us to be aware of. There is great value in learning to keep expectations and obligations and problem solving from our minds. But it is only beneficial when, if at the same time we are practicing being still. By keeping our hearts and minds from racing, we are best able to see our way forward. Here's some of the benefits of being still. We keep our minds and hearts from becoming the Tasmanian devil. If you're old enough to remember that, the Bugs Bunny TV cartoon series, he'd show up there. Ruminating and trying to solve the future is like a flywheel. Our minds get to turning until we spin out of control, unable to respond properly, and are more likely to be reactive than proactive. Kind of like the Tasmanian devil. Secondly, another benefit is being still is peaceful. It allows us to be reflective, observing what is going on inside, not to mention the physical benefits from being freed from what is going on around us. Third, you could call this actually active stillness. That is, be still and know. Being still is a discipline with the intention of observing and receiving. If we're still, we can watch and listen and understand. So those 3 benefits of being still, keep those in mind. So it just keeps our hearts and minds from becoming the Tasmanian devil, that spinning flywheel. Being still is peaceful, and then we actually need to look at it as an active stillness, in that we're still, but there's a discipline, the intention of just observation and receiving, watching, listening, and understanding. So how do we practice being still? Well, first, it's location. Location. You'll need to go to a place that doesn't have anything in it that will trigger the flywheel of your mind. Typically, this would be a place you don't normally go to, and to get started maybe require you to be a little ridiculous, like the attic. I find that either being outside or looking outside tends to set the stage really nicely. Secondly, set a timer. Otherwise, you'll be distracted by looking at a clock. At first, this will be especially challenging, but set the timer and then focus on being still for that amount of time. Third, don't get too relaxed, but don't be uncomfortable either. Each of those can be distracting. 4, don't open anything. Not your computer, your phone, books, nothing. The one exception would be a notebook, and only when you need to write something down that you've observed or received. 5th, do nothing and be still. I mentioned this earlier. It's both and. This is the opposite of emptying your mind. In this case, you want to fill your mind, but only with the right things. Cease mentally from striving, but be actively still. Lastly, ask yourself these questions before God. What do I need to know about myself? What do I need to know about who God is? What do I need to know about why God has me where I am? What is keeping me from doing what God wants me to do? What is most important right now? And lastly, what should I be thankful for today? The quiet of the morning is the perfect setting for being still. Enjoy that time of being free as a teenager to observe, listen, and know. Being still is the best way forward. If you want a transcript of this podcast, go to wisdominallthings.com and search for this title. You'll also find quotes, articles, and other resources to help you better understand and apply wisdom in all things. Go to wisdominallthings.com.